All right, thanks for checking out this video. My name is Rob Steinbach. I'm an Anglican church planter in Kitsap County, and we are starting a new church called Shalom Anglican. We've just started with some initial meetings down in Old Town Silverdale, and so there'll be a little information about that at the end of the video. But I've been putting out some videos each week. I've done a few on Anglicanism, and I do one every week called the Weekly Word, which is like a short devotional video. You can find all those on our YouTube channel, Shalom Anglican. But for this video, I wanted to talk to you about why you should consider being a part of a church plant, and really thinking about individuals and families and church leadership, or vestry teams or elder boards, something like that. So first, let's talk to individuals and families. Why should you consider being a part of a church plant? Well, the first reason is that you'll learn more about the church than you ever have. There's nothing like hands-on experience, right, to learn something. Most of us have attended churches that were started before we got there. The building is there, the leaders are there, the programs are in place. Everything is there, and so we come into that and jump in, and that's a wonderful experience. But when you plant a church and build something from the ground up, you get to experience and contribute to all the pieces that come together to form a healthy church. And in that process, you just learn a lot. You'll find yourself asking questions about why we do certain things and not others, things that you may have just taken for granted before. You'll actually have time to ponder those things and wonder how they got to be where they are. You'll wonder about how our theology informs our practice of church. So it's just a great learning experience. You'll also appreciate the church and your church more because you'll be a part of seeing it planted. It's the difference between a person who builds their own home and those, like most of us, who buy a home already built. But the person who built their own home, they really appreciate it because they got to see everything. They knew how hard it was to put the drywall up or put the flooring in or whatever it is. I think you get the point. But you just appreciate something that you get to be a part of. Another reason is that the book of Acts will come alive. The book of Acts is all about how the church got started. And when you become a part of a church plant, there are parallels between reading about the beginning of the church and literally what you're doing week in and week out. And this experience, it's just different. It's just different than going to an established church. In a church plant, you really do get like a front row seat to seeing God move, to seeing people come to Christ, to see the gospel being preached and a new body of believers being formed, and just all the richness of that. The book of Acts just becomes more relevant. I think some of us are just drawn to the adventure. And if that's you, being a part of church plant may be a good fit for you. Here's a third reason why you should consider being a part of a church plant. And that is that your reasons to go to church will be purified. What do I mean by this? I mean that they'll be purified. You'll find yourself coming to church for God. Because most likely everything else, the band, right, the children's ministry, the coffee, maybe the preaching, it's going to be mediocre at best. Some cases non-existent. In other words, it's not all polished. It's not all nice and neat for you. We don't realize how much we are all consumer Christians in America, me included. When we visit a church, we ask, what's in it for me? Even if we don't mean to, right? We think about the music. Does it fit my style? What about the preaching? Is it intelligent enough, or is it emotional enough, or whatever the things that we think really matters? Is there good application, or I don't know. We think about, do our friends go here? Are there people my age? What about the parking? What about the kids program? We think about all that. I read a recent statistic that said only 27% of regular church attenders say they go to church to get closer to God. Man, that's a problem, right? And I think it's a slow slide that we kind of just get in this place. But being a part of a church plant will purify your reasons for going to church, and will bring those reasons back to God, because the other stuff isn't there. And meeting with God, that's the heart of our vision at Shalom. We want to gather each week to meet with God more than anything else. And so, that may sound like, duh, Rob, that's what every church wants. But again, you guys, it's amazing how easy it is to slip into the mindset of, that we want to make church as easy or as comfortable as possible to reach people so that they'll come back. And then that in many ways can become the focus of church, not actually meeting with God. Another reason why you should consider being a part of a church plant is that your presence and gifts are actually needed. In a church plant, everyone is needed. Everyone is counted. There's kind of a joke among church planters that, when we're counting our Sunday attendance as we get started, we count everybody. We count the babies that are still in the womb. We count your pets. Sometimes you'll see even church planters mention, that big family that takes up the 2 back rows. They're on vacation this week, just to let you know that we still count them. There's just something about being needed that actually helps us to get up and go to church. And of course, this can get out of balance, right? If we need to be needed, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, people missing you when you're not there. They notice when you're not there. Also, when a church is getting started, there's just a lot of opportunities to serve. And you can really see how your service makes a difference, because often there's no one to take your place if you can't make it, or if you don't show up. That task doesn't get done. In other words, you're needed. And that alone, it can help you to grow. It's easy in an established church to ride the bench. Let's be honest. If I'm in a place and I'm like, I like this church and they don't really need me to do some extra stuff, I can be good. I can just come and listen and, even give and go about my life. But, some of you need to be a part of a church plant because you need a challenge. I met with one man in our church plant who resonated with that. And he said, maybe this is what I need, because he was saying how he's been feeling kind of flat in his faith and not doing much. And so being a part of a church plant will stir him up in that way. So the fifth reason is that, and this is one is geared towards families, obviously, but you'll get to raise your kids in the context of mission. I know it may be intimidating to think about being a part of a core team to start a church if you have small kids or even teenagers. But again, a big part of that is that we're so used to church just having everything for us and it being easy, this great kids program or youth group or whatever it is. But the flip side to that is that if you get involved with the church plant with your kids will be able to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And as you are serving in a church plant, you can bring your kids along, bring them along to serve with you, and they'll learn about service week in and week out. If you're serving on the altar team, setting up communion, you can teach your kids about Eucharist. If you're setting up, you can teach your kids about service. You can disciple your kids and teach them all kinds of stuff as you're on a mission together in church. Your kids will just, as they grow up, they'll have so many rich memories of back when the church was small and what God did, and they'll see it grow. They'll have just a front row seat to seeing what God does in a way that, again, it's just not the same in an established church. When we planted our first church, our kids were ages 3 through 9, and they had a blast. They remember all the events, they remember all the people, and just the ups and downs of it. It was just rich. So if you want to, disciple your kids, teach them about mission, one of the best things you can do is be a part of a church plant. You don't have to wait till later for that. You can do it even when they're young. Just being a part of the church plant will bring up questions and will give you opportunities to teach your kids about mission and about church and service. So there are some reasons for individuals, for families to be a part of a church plant. There's, a dozen more, 2 dozen more. But I want to share a couple reasons why a whole church should help church plants or send out church planters. And so this is kind of geared towards elder boards or vestry teams or church councils, but it also crosses over to individuals and families. So please stay tuned in and just listen to these a few more. The first is that it can re-energize your vision and mission. As you hear the vision for a new church plant, and as you see the risk the planter is taking and stepping out to gather folks and to see people meet Jesus and get discipled, it's inspiring. Church planters are often creative. Their creativity and ideas on reaching new folks can re-energize an existing church to get back on mission. It's just a fact that in an established church over time, things just get stagnant. That's just how it goes. But rubbing shoulders again with a church planter, seeing God doing something new can encourage the established church in new ways. It can re-energize your vision and mission. Another reason is that we need you. I did the third one there too. Let's just talk about number 2. We need you, right? In fact, it's just a fact, right, that church plants need supporting churches. We need your prayers. We need your financial support. To think about your budget for church planting or mission and consider giving to a church plant. When I was pastoring an established church, we set aside 10% of our budget for church planting, and we were able to give several planters, like $500 a month. That was a huge blessing to them. We were also able to do one-time gifts. Sometimes those types of things arise in a church plant where you don't have the large savings that an established church does. I remember we helped one guy. We were a part of several churches giving to help a guy buy a van that he needed for his family. So, every church planter has to raise support. That's a part of it. But established churches can give more than individuals can often give, and just really be a blessing to the church plant. I'm raising about half of our budget right now for 2024, and I can't do it alone. I need supporting churches. We also need, again, your prayers. We need your encouragement. So many ups and downs. Just hearing from a supporting church saying, we're praying for you, we believe in you, we mentioned you on Sunday, those types of things. It's just so encouraging when you're out here, because it is lonely. Also, even if you're willing to release some and send believers from your church to join us, we can't do it alone, which kind of leads to my next point, that it keeps you from a scarcity mentality. I had a good friend recently. He asked me to come share about our church plant on stage at his church. And, I'm Anglican, he's not, but he still said, if you want to go, if you're interested in this new Anglican church plant, talk to Rob. And that was such a blessing. And it's really rare. It's a rare thing. It's a rare thing for a pastor to do that, especially if that pastor isn't from the church or connected with their denomination or something like that. And it's rare because we're afraid. We're afraid in established churches, we're afraid that the good people we have will go, right? The givers, the leaders, that they'll go. And we just need to be honest about that spirit, that kind of scarcity mentality is idolatry. And once your heart gets in that place where you're just always worried about people leaving and you're trying to grab onto people, man, that just leads to a bad place. And especially as a pastor, I have to remind myself that this church isn't mine, that no one belongs to me, that they belong to Jesus, that Jesus is the chief shepherd. And so if he calls and if he's stirring us to plant a church, we're going to lose some folks. And that's okay, because remember, at one point they weren't there and God sent them in the first place. He's the one that sent them in the first place. And we've had this rich story together. So we don't own them, so we can send them and watch. And when we do that, we can watch God send us new people. And we can get back to the work of ministry development if we haven't been doing that, because that is a part of our calling, which leads to the final reason why you should consider supporting church planting as an elder board or as a church council team. And that is that it just keeps your leadership pipeline open. And what I mean by this is, if as an established church, okay, you are open to sending a new church plant some of your best people, just like my friend did, or if you're willing to send out a core group from your own church to plant a new church, what happens is that sending those leaders out creates a need. It creates an empty place on stage, if you will. It creates a need for someone else to lead the small group. How many times have I heard over the years someone leading a small group and it gets too big, but nobody wants to leave. Nobody wants to break off and help start a new group. It happens all the time because we like what we have, But again, when you send people, it creates that space. It creates that opportunity. More new priests and deacons see a need and they step into it. Creates a hole on the worship team. You get the idea. So it keeps your leadership pipeline open. Meaning this, if you are consistently raising up leaders, as every church should do, then being involved in church planting creates that need. It creates a place for those new leaders to serve. Because the fact is in an established church, let's say that it's around 200-ish adults, right? Maybe they have a full-time preacher. For example, the church only needs so many pastors and preachers and clergy. And at some point, the man or the woman whom God calls to preach and pastor won't see a place for them because the needs are all met. But if you're involved with planting, this is my point, there will be a never-ending need. All right, there'll be more opportunities all the time. So that's that. I want to give one final reason. This is for everybody, for all of us, to be involved in church planting. And that is just that you'll be a part of something that outlasts you. Your giving, your service, your presence, your ministry, all of it will outlast you. And how awesome is that, right? You know, friends, we only have so much time. I'm 45. If I have 20 more years left of vocational ministry, I want it to matter. And helping to start a new church is something that will outlast me. It's something that will outlast you, that will bless generations to come. And of course, serving, you know, in your local established church, that's also true. You're going to be a part of that legacy. But for some of us, we're called to go. We're called to do something different, and there's church planting. And we need you. We need you. So I'm in the process of planting a new Anglican church in Kitsap County. We are meeting in Old Town Silverdale. I'd love for you to join us this Saturday at 5 p.m. for evening prayer and meal. If you're interested, come and see. You know, come and pray with us. There'll be more info on that meeting at the end of this video with details. The next week or two, maybe 3, I hope to do another video on church planting, and in that one talk about what it's like to plant a church, or the stages of development in a church plant. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again. Shalom.